For you to view at a later date. Remember that by tuning in and completing those knowledge checks, you are eligible to receive those YB4H points. So if you need to view these, you can visit our website, u.osu.edu/HopeDreamsConnect. I'll put that in the chat box later on for you to view. Closed captioning is available. If you click the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen, you can access those. And then lastly, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and then I will ask those on behalf of you at the end of the presentation. With that, our presentation today is titled Hopes in a Hard Times. We are joined by a friend of the program, Shannon Carter. She is an extension educator with the Ohio State University Extension, serving Fairfield County. She's passionate about helping others live smart by using research-based information to better their lives, families, and communities. As an extension educator, Shannon enjoys teaching others about health and wellness, mindfulness, financial literacy, and safe food preserving. Please welcome Shannon.
Thanks, Josh. So we in Extension are part of the statewide campus and the outreach arm of the Ohio State University. We bring research-based information to life in every county in Ohio. And we're excited to partner with the Chief Wellness Office once again for this webinar series. And you'll be hearing from a couple more of my Extension colleagues later in sessions 5 and 6. Well, last week, Dr. Feldman introduced us to the science of hope. He described the conditions in which hope thrives, which are goals, pathways, and agency. We learned that hope is good. Hope is one of the single best predictors of well-being across the lifespan. In a little more detail, we'll look at those again for quick review. Goals are the cornerstone of hope. They have to be your goals, though, not what someone else wants for you. And goals have to have some degree of probability, but you have to really want it. You have to be willing to face adversity to reach this goal. And the way we get there are the pathways. We identify obstacles and consider ways to overcome them. And this is important for both motivation and engagement. An agency, which we'll be referring to today as willpower, is that ability to sustain motivation to move along these pathways. Well, this week, I would like to build on the science of hope and talk about the power of hope, even in hard times. And this definition is by Dr. Chan Hellman, who's the director of the Hope Research Center at the University of Oklahoma. And he says that hope is the belief that your future will be better than today, and you have the power to make it so. Well, the first half of this definition is optimism, and the second half is taking action. So hope requires action along with the belief that the future will be better. What's really neat about this, Dr. Hellman says that hope is a way of thinking. And because you can think it, you can teach it. And that means that hope is accessible to each and every one of us. Well, as Dr. Feldman pointed out last week, 80% of us will have some form of trauma in our lifetime, and all of us will face adversity. So how do trauma and adversity affect hope? Well, they affect it in a lot of ways. They diminish our capacity for hope. They rob us of problem-solving ability, making it difficult to map new pathways around barriers toward our goals. And they deplete our willpower. When we have hope, we're more likely to set goals for achievement. But when we experience trauma, we're more likely to set goals for things that we don't want to happen, and these are called avoidant goals. Well, in the presence of adversity, we're better at short-term goal setting. It's hard for anyone facing adversity to set long-term goals, to solve problems, and overcome barriers. So what happens when we fail? We may start with hope, but that quickly fades to anger or even rage as a goal might be significantly blocked. That could lead to despair if we're unable to adjust that goal and the pathways are just not available. And finally, to a feeling of apathy or hopelessness and a total loss of motivation. Repeated failures at goals result in a general expectation that future goal attainment is not likely. I can't. I will never. So why try? Well, conversely, what happens when we succeed? If we can clarify our goals, this increases our agency. We consider barriers and adjust pathways. And this progress reinforces that relationship between agency and pathway. The thought of, I've done this before, I can do this again. And we start to transition from I can't to I can. And this nurtures hope. Well, the more we desire that outcome, the more willingly we'll face adversity to try and overcome it. Every new situation produces anxiety, but that past success helps us persevere through each obstacle. Think about learning to drive a car. Maybe your first step was to back the car out of the garage. And after you met with success there, you learned to move the driveway, maneuvered about the car about the driveway. Perhaps then you could drive it around the block, around the neighborhood, around your community, and eventually ventured onto the highway. Each step of that producing confidence with more success. So this idea is that hope begets hope. Once a goal is achieved, you set a new goal, and the process starts again. And what is the key here is envisioning that goal. Imagination is the instrument of hope, and it's very powerful. We have to be able to imagine ourselves being successful. Visions of the future pull us forward and keep us motivated and moving toward our goals. Imagination is what helps us to manage our willpower. Unfortunately, willpower is a limited resource. Every day we are depleting that willpower, and we lose capacity to regulate our emotions, thoughts, or behavior. How much mental energy does the pathway require? Well, adversity drains us of that motivation. I can't pass up the opportunity to quote Thomas Edison, since this slide features his invention. As an inventor, Edison made 1,000 unsuccessful attempts at inventing the light bulb. When a reporter asked, how did it feel to fail 1,000 times? Edison replied, I didn't fail 1,000 times. The light bulb was an invention with 1,000 steps. He was also quoted as saying, when you have exhausted all the possibilities, remember this, you haven't. The HOPE map was referred to last week in that presentation. Well, it's an intervention developed by Dr. Shane Lopez to help students plan out how to achieve goals and overcome obstacles to success. HOPE is essential to students' academic progress and has been linked with a 12% bump in student achievement, as you can guess. Well, the great thing is it works for adults too. HOPE mapping is cited by many clinicians and used as an exercise to bring clarity to the goals process and increase one's agency. And it's as simple as this. Take a piece of paper and fold it into 3 sections. Write down a goal you want to achieve, whether it's this week, month, year, etc., on the far right-hand side of the page. Then write the pathways you could take to achieve that goal on the far left side. Pathways include the tasks that must be completed in order to achieve that goal. And finally, write down the obstacles that must be overcome to each pathway in the center section. Reflect on how to overcome these obstacles and what might be holding you back. And this is where most of us struggle, is in this obstacles column. These goal-setting methods have been shown to strengthen motivation and resilience in overcoming setbacks in the pursuit of accomplishing one's goals. Next, I would like to introduce you to Caroline Rose and her dog, Riley. Caroline was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma at age 27. There's no cure for this type of cancer. The best you can hope for is to send it into remission and be prepared for recurrence. Amidst this journey, she adopted a dog who was severely mistreated, and Caroline healed him. Riley then healed her when her cancer relapsed. She found that even with a loving husband and supportive friends and family, she could be herself the most when she was with her dog. She didn't have to pretend she was okay. The third time she was diagnosed, she relied on Riley even more and didn't have to put on a brave face when she was with her dog. Eventually, she didn't want to fight anymore, and she told the nurse she was done. The nurse could have started the chemo treatment anyway, but she understood how important the emotional component is to healing. So she talked Caroline into fighting again, and Caroline fought on for her children. The power of choice brought hope. It was the hardest decision in her life. And here are some of the wise lessons that she learned. Hope doesn't guarantee a happy ending. Sometimes we need to hold on to hope. It's what keeps us going, helps us get to a place where we can accept the situation. If there's no hope, then why are we doing this? The most courageous thing we can do is to hope. And sometimes that might even be hoping against the odds. Well, if you want to learn more about Caroline and be inspired, you can visit dearrileyrose.com and sign up for Caroline's Hits of Hope. And I believe Josh is dropping those into chat box for us. Well, Caroline said, we can't fully live unless we have hope. She says, listen to your gut. When we're brought to our knees, we rely more on our faith. So ask to be quiet and still enough to listen. Realize that we have all the answers through intuition or through a higher power. Sometimes you lose what you have, but you create something even more beautiful and meaningful in its place. When we go through trauma and hard times, that the things that are not as important tend to fall out of our lives, and the things that are meaningful become more clear. Trauma can clarify what's important. So hope is waiting with patience. Hope is a gift that keeps us going in the right direction. Hope sometimes requires trusting in things or people beyond ourselves. Well, Caroline found inspiration in Brené Brown's book, The Power of Vulnerability. This collection of teachings is on authenticity, connection, and courage, and helps dispel the myth that vulnerability is weakness, and reveals that it is, in truth, our most accurate measure of courage. It offers both an invitation and a promise. When we dare to drop the armor that protects us from feeling vulnerable, we open ourselves to the experiences that bring purpose and meaning to our lives. This is Dr. Jane McGonigal, a world-renowned speaker, author, and designer of alternate reality games that are designed to improve real lives and solve real problems. Well, after dealing with her own traumatic brain injury, she delved into the research on what happens after trauma. And what she found is this: some people get stronger and happier after a traumatic event. Scientists call this post-traumatic growth. And scientists now know that a traumatic event doesn't doom us to suffer indefinitely. Instead, we can use it as a springboard to unleash our best qualities and lead healthier lives. And she found the top 5 things that people with post-traumatic growth say. My priorities have changed. I'm not afraid to do what makes me happy. I feel closer to my friends and family. I understand myself better. I know who I really am now. I have a new sense of meaning and purpose in my life. And I'm better able to focus on my goals and dreams. Well, those are essentially the direct opposite of the top 5 regrets of people who are dying. So how does a traumatic event unlock our ability to lead a life with fewer regrets? How do we get from trauma to growth? Well, Dr. McGonigal found that there are 4 kinds of strength or resilience that contribute to post-traumatic growth. And there are scientifically validated activities that you can do every day to build up these 4 kinds of resilience. First, physical resilience. The number one thing you can do to boost your physical resilience is to not sit still. Every single second you are not sitting, you are actively improving the health of your body and mind. So feel free to stand for the rest of this slide or presentation, or even raise your arms in triumph over your head. Building mental resilience means you have more mental focus, more discipline, and determination. We know from scientific research that willpower actually works like a muscle. It gets stronger the more you exercise it. So tackling even the tiniest challenge without giving up builds willpower. Jane gives the example of snapping your fingers 50 times. Go ahead and try this right now if you like. But meanwhile, I couldn't resist this picture of a figurine using a lightsaber against chocolate. Another way to exercise willpower. Each time you overcome temptation, you're that much stronger. Building emotional resilience means you have the ability to evoke powerful, positive emotions like curiosity or love, which we feel when we look at someone we love, or even baby animals like these. If you can manage to experience 3 positive emotions for every 1 negative emotion over the course of an hour, a day, a week, you dramatically improve your health and your ability to successfully tackle any problem you're facing. And this is called the 3-to-1 positive emotion ratio. And then finally, social resilience. It means you actually get more strength from your friends, neighbors, family, your community. One great way to boost social resilience is gratitude. So take a second right now and send someone a quick thank you or text message. You can also build social resilience through touch, like shaking hands or hugging for 6 seconds. And this raises the level of oxytocin, or trust hormone, in your bloodstream. Or Dr. McGonigal also developed a game called Super Better. Super Better is a gameful way of living that increases resilience, the ability to stay strong, motivated, and optimistic, even in facing difficult obstacles. Now, I'm not a game player, and my teenage kids can attest to that, but I just downloaded this on my phone, and I plan to check it out. But once I figure out what a power-up is and who the bad guys are, you are welcome to tag me as an ally. When life's circumstances drop us to our knees, we feel a loss of hope. However, by understanding that hope is a choice, we can cope better and keep it alive. Christopher Reeve knew the power of hope. We may know him best for the role he played in Superman movies. He was my hero as a child growing up, and he still is today. Hope helped him to endure a devastating spinal cord injury caused by a competitive horseback riding accident in 1995. The accident left him paralyzed from the neck down and unable to breathe without a ventilator. And in spite of this traumatic, life-changing event, he made a deliberate choice to be productive and not be a burden to his family, which gave him hope. He started the Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation with the goal of finding a cure and advancing the quality of life for people living with spinal cord injuries. He also went on to guest star and direct other movies. Hope is a social gift. It's not something that happens in isolation within us. It happens in relationship with each other. We should be more intentional in our social connections. Our connectedness, in fact, with others or with something greater than ourselves is one of the single best predictors of hope. I'll say that again. Our connectedness with others or with something greater than ourselves is one of the single best predictors of hope. Remember that hope is a way of thinking, so it can be taught. So at the heart of change is our ability to, first of all, understand the way things are right now in our lives. And then we can begin to imagine the way that things could be. And this is where hope is born. So here are some of the things that we looked at in this third week of the webinar series on hopes, dreams, and connections. Hope is a way of thinking that can be taught. This idea of hope begetting hope, that we can build resilience in four main ways: physical, mental, emotional, and social. And that connectedness is one of the single biggest predictors of hope.
Thank you so much, Shannon. We have some time for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please drop those in the Q&A box. And then I am more than happy to answer or ask those questions on your behalf. I think I just saw someone had their hand up. Jennifer Bechtel. Oh, let me see. There we go. Okay. People are putting their hands down. There it is. Michael Graham. Oh, here we go. We had one drop in the chat box. Does this information apply across the lifespans? From Angela Green.
Yes, if looking at the web links that were dropped in chat of the four, I had three main people that I pulled information from. And then that hope map was done with children. It's also been used with adults. And that Dr. Chan Hellman, he also did research in children facing trauma and adversity as well as adults.
Beautiful, thank you. I had a couple people just mentioned, can you name the app again?
Super Better.
Super Better.
One word.
Right.
It's free. I downloaded it. There's also an online version if you want to check it out on the desktop first.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. Kristen just wrote a comment about how she's trying to support her son in school. I guess any recommendations with children when it comes to school and sports, helping with being helping them to identify hope or add in more hope throughout their day?
So I don't know if the concern is that it's a lot on students' schedule to try and manage practice time and game time and all of that energy, as well as be fully present for school and keep their grades up. I think, that mapping activity works with children and in fact was developed for students. That might be a simple thing that you could sit down with your son and go through, and maybe for him, find out where he has the most concern and set a small goal. I think, the key for a lot of this is setting tiny goals. And that's what we need, are just to take those baby steps forward. But I think you can still help create that long-term vision of where he wants to be. And then I think one of our main jobs as parents is to help our kids find the pathways, develop the tools they need and that willpower or agency, but then help them find pathways or a way around obstacles as they arise. Great question.
I'm actually going to mute Michael. He had a question for you. So Michael, you're Michael Graham, if you want to unmute yourself and ask your question, go right ahead. You had your hand raised. Maybe, maybe not. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, we had one more come in, a question come in. Let me just kind of read this through. How can you encourage hope in someone that is negative on life due to consistent bad experiences?
And that's one of the tough ones. And why in my preparing for this session today, looked for people who have gone through some pretty traumatic things. I didn't go into detail with either Jane McGonigal or Caroline Rose, but looking into their stories and seeing, where they found hope, I think can be a practice that can help someone who doesn't have any hope left of their own. Maybe they can borrow and be inspired from others. I also see that a lot of what we go through sometimes, it's relative. There's always someone who has it worse. And while that's not necessarily a positive thought, it's kind of the idea that, others can make it through. I bet I can too. And again, looking for those small wins. Sometimes it is the tiniest thing, like just a very small goal, something that you can do to help you just get through the day, to feel better. And then a lot of times the research, all of our presentations are pointing to gratitude as well. And that is the idea of seeking something beyond yourself and removing the focus from your limitations to then open up to possibilities. And connecting with others and expressing gratitude is one way to open yourself up that way as well. But that is a tough one.
All right. Thank you. Lori just provided a little recommendation here. Kelly McGonigal wrote an interesting book titled The Willpower Extinct. It's a nice aspect of the whole book. Will show a willpower gets depleted and how we will have to essentially take care of ourselves. Thank you. Kelly McGonigal, sorry. All right. Well, with that being said, thank you so much, Shannon, for joining us today. Thank you for all those who stayed on. Just as a reminder, the recording will be up on the website within the next 48 hours. As you exit the webinar, you'll be taken into the post-evaluation. We ask that you just take the next 5 minutes to complete that, especially if you are looking to earn White Before H points. Additionally, an email will be sent out here shortly with the link as well with the slides. Join us next week as we are joined by Dr. Brenda Buffington, who will be presenting on the Energy for Hope. Take care, everyone.